The crimson glow of Nexus Prime's judgment chamber cast long shadows as Ambassador Minho stood in the defendant's circle, his hands clasped behind his back. The massive crystalline dome above them pulsed with alien energy, while 47 species watched from their hovering platforms. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension as thousands of eyes focused on the lone human figure below. Minho had been to this chamber many times before, but never as the accused. The polished metal floor beneath his feet reflected the swirling lights above, creating an almost hypnotic pattern that seemed to mock humanity's predicament. His diplomatic uniform, pressed and perfect, felt heavy on his shoulders as he prepared to defend his entire species. "The humans have proven themselves too dangerous," declared the Vorthok Chancellor. His serpentine form coiled around his speaking pillar. His scaled skin gleamed in the artificial light, and his forked tongue flicked out as he spoke. "Their expansion rate exceeds all acceptable parameters. In merely 2 centuries, they have colonized over 800 worlds." The Chancellor's words echoed through the chamber, amplified by the acoustic design that ensured every syllable reached every delegate. Around the circular room, alien faces turned toward the holographic displays that materialized in the air, showing the spread of human colonies across the galaxy. Like a plague of lights, Minho's jaw tightened as he watched the display. Each dot represented millions of lives, families who had found new homes among the stars, children born under alien suns, farmers who had turned barren rocks into gardens, miners who had carved cities from asteroid belts. These weren't just statistics, they were his people. "We built hospitals on Kepler 9, Minho said, his voice carrying across the chamber with practiced authority. "Our engineers saved the dying seas of Proxima Beta. We've shared our medical advances freely with every species that asked for help." The Mantillian delegate, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns, chimed in with a sound like wind through glass. "The humans speak of aid, but they take more than they give. Their mining operations strip worlds bare, or factories pollute entire atmospheres." Minho turned to face the Mantillian, his diplomatic training keeping his voice steady despite the frustration building in his chest. "We follow all Council environmental protocols. Our restoration projects have actually improved the ecological balance on 17 worlds." "Protocols you helped write," hissed the Vorthok Chancellor. "Convenient regulations that favor your aggressive expansion." The ethereal representative rose from its floating platform, its translucent form shimmering like heat waves. When it spoke, its voice rang like breaking glass, each word sharp and cutting. "You contaminate the natural order with your chaos. Your species breeds conflict wherever it goes. The Rigel incident, the Vega mining dispute, the trade war with the Centauri Federation, all human-initiated conflicts." Minho's hands clenched behind his back. The Rigel incident had been a misunderstanding, blown out of proportion by species that feared human advancement. The Vega mining dispute was about fair resource allocation, not aggression. And the trade war with the Centauri Federation had been defensive, protecting human colonies from economic exploitation. "Every species has growing pains," Minho replied, his voice gaining strength. "The Vorthok Empire once conquered 12 systems before joining the Council. The Ethereals experimented on primitive species for centuries. The Mantillians strip-mined entire star systems. Yet you all found your place in the galactic community?" The Vorthok Chancellor's scales rippled with anger. "Those were different times. The galaxy has evolved beyond such barbarism. The Council exists to prevent the chaos that once plagued our civilizations." From the human observation deck, Hyjin watched her husband fight for their people's future. The military analyst had run the numbers 1,000 times, calculating logistics, supply chains, and evacuation protocols. If the vote went against them, evacuation would be a nightmare. 800 worlds, over 2 billion human souls, all needing transport back to Earth or the inner colonies. Her tablet displayed real-time data from across human space. Colony ships were already being prepared, just in case. Emergency protocols were being activated. Children were being pulled from schools. Families were packing their most precious possessions. The very thought of abandoning their homes, their dreams, their carefully built lives among the stars, made her stomach turn. The Zephyrian delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, spoke in electronic tones. The humans expand too quickly, adapt too rapidly. They upset the careful balance we have maintained for millennia. Balance? Minho's voice rose, his diplomatic mask finally slipping. You call stagnation balance? When was the last time any council species made a significant technological advancement? When did any of you last explore beyond your established borders? We're not disrupting balance. We're showing you what progress looks like. The chamber erupted in angry, chittering, electronic static, and harmonic vibrations as the alien delegates reacted to Minho's words. Some species had translation difficulties, their communication methods so different from human speech that nuances were lost. Others understood perfectly and were outraged by the implication. The ethereal representatives. Form flared brighter. Progress. You call the destruction of 3 ancient civilizations progress. The Altarians fled their homeworld because of human expansion. The Deneb collective dissolved rather than compete with human trade networks. Those civilizations chose to leave. Minho shot back. He offered partnership, cooperation, mutual benefit. They refused to adapt, to grow, to embrace the possibilities of a shared future. The holographic vote tally appeared in the center of the chamber, each species' decision displayed in their native symbols. The numbers climbed. 43 votes for exile. 4 against. The gavel's sound echoed like a death knell, each strike driving home the finality of the decision. 30 standard days, the Chancellor announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. All human presence must withdraw from Council space. Any human vessels found in our territory after the deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Minho straightened, his dark eyes blazing with defiance and promise. The weight of his species' future pressed down on him, but he refused to bow. You exile us today, but remember this moment. Humanity has a long memory, and we learn from our mistakes. Today you teach us that cooperation has limits, that fear trumps friendship, that the strong make rules for the weak. We will remember this lesson. The chamber fell silent as Minho's words hung in the air like a prophecy. Admiral Stu stood on the bridge of the New Sol, watching the largest fleet in human history assemble in the Centauri system. The massive viewscreen showed an endless sea of ships stretching into the darkness of space. 3,000 vessels of every size and shape floated in perfect formation. From massive colony vessels the size of cities to nimble frigates that darted between them like protective escorts, the sight was both magnificent and heartbreaking. Each ship carried families' dreams, the remnants of human civilization beyond Earth. Children pressed their faces against portholes, watching their home planets shrink behind them. Parents held crying babies who would never see the worlds where they were born. Elderly colonists clutched photo albums filled with memories of gardens they would never tend again. Status report, Taewoo commanded, his weathered hands gripping the command rail. The admiral had served for 40 years, fought pirates in the Outer Rim, and negotiated with hostile alien species. But nothing had prepared him for this moment, leading his entire species into exile. Colony ships are at 78% capacity, reported Captain Subin from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. We've got 18 days to complete evacuation of the remaining outer worlds. The Busan Dream and Daegu Hope are still loading refugees from the mining colonies. The bridge hummed with activity as officers coordinated the massive evacuation. Communications officers spoke in hushed tones with ship captains across the fleet. Navigation specialists plotted courses through space lanes that would soon be forbidden to human ships. Supply officers calculated food, water, and medical supplies for millions of refugees. On the planet below, Engineer Jamin supervised the systematic dismantling of the fusion reactors that had powered New Centauri cities for 50 years. Sparks flew as his team cut through massive power conduits with plasma torches. The air filled with the acrid smell of melted metal and ozone. Nothing valuable would be left for the aliens to claim, Jamin muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. His team worked around the clock, loading quantum computers and advanced manufacturing equipment onto the waiting transports. Each piece of technology represented years of human innovation, discoveries that had pushed the boundaries of science and engineering. "Sir, the quantum core is ready for transport," called out Technician Young-Soo, his voice muffled by his protective helmet. "But we need another hour to safely disconnect the antimatter containment systems." Jamin nodded grimly. The antimatter was humanity's most dangerous technology, capable of powering starships or destroying entire cities. If they couldn't take it with them, they would have to make sure it couldn't be used against them. Back on the New Sol, Lieutenant Dayun's voice cut through the bridge chatter with urgent precision. "Sir, the Aviari patrol fleet is moving closer. 12 ships, cruiser class, bearing down on our position at half impulse." Who studied the tactical display, watching the bird-like alien ships approach, like predators circling wounded prey. The Aviari were known for their ruthless efficiency and their hunger for advanced technology. Their ships looked like massive mechanical birds, with swept-back wings that housed powerful weapon systems. "They're not supposed to interfere with," the evacuation commander Wan said, his jaw clenched with frustration. "The Council guaranteed safe passage." "The Council says many things," Tae-woo replied, his voice cold as space itself. "But they want our technology as much as they want us gone. Accelerate the timeline. I want those reactors offline and the antimatter stores secured within 6 hours." The evacuation became a race against time. Shuttle crews worked without rest, ferrying people and equipment from the planet's surface to the waiting ships. Families were separated in the chaos, children crying for parents, elderly people struggling to carry their possessions. The lucky ones had relatives helping them. The unlucky ones relied on the kindness of strangers. On the agricultural world of New Busan, Dr. Min Jun watched his life's work burn. The research facility that had been his second home for 20 years was consumed by flames that reached toward the alien sky. The hybrid crops that could feed billions were being destroyed rather than left for alien hands to exploit. His wife, Yoi, held their 5-year-old daughter, Soo-young, as the flames consumed the greenhouse laboratories. The little girl didn't understand why they were burning the pretty flowers, why everyone was crying, why they had to leave their home. "Daddy, why are we burning the plants?" Soyoung asked, her innocent voice cutting through the smoke and chaos. Min Jun knelt beside his daughter, his heart breaking as he tried to explain the unexplainable. "Sometimes, sweetheart, we have to protect our work from people who would use it to hurt others. We're not just burning plants, we're protecting the future." Ji squeezed her husband's hand, tears streaming down her face. "We'll rebuild," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackling flames. "We'll make it better. We'll find new worlds, new soil, new possibilities." The evacuation continued for 17 days, each moment precious as the deadline approached. Human ships stripped entire worlds bare, taking everything that could be moved and destroying what couldn't. Libraries were downloaded into quantum storage units. Artworks were carefully packed in climate-controlled containers. Even the DNA samples from thousands of species were preserved in biological archives. As the last human ship departed Council, Space Tae-woo made a decision that would change the course of history. Instead of retreating to Earth as the Council expected, the Admiral turned his fleet toward the unexplored Outer Rim where no alien species had claimed territory. "Admiral, the Council expects us to return to Sol System," warned Commander Wan, his voice tight with concern. "If we deviate from the agreed route, they might consider it a hostile act." Tae-woo stared at the star charts, studying the vast unexplored regions beyond Council space. The Outer Rim was dangerous, filled with unknown threats and uncharted hazards. But it was also free, unclaimed by any government that could exile them again. "The Council forfeited any right to dictate our movements when they cast us out," Tae-woo replied, his voice carrying the weight of command and the pain of betrayal. "We are no longer their subjects. We go where we choose, and we choose freedom over security." He turned to face his bridge crew, seeing the mixture of fear and hope in their eyes. "Signal the fleet. We're heading into the unknown. Today we are exiles, but tomorrow We will be pioneers. The galaxy thinks it has seen the last of humanity. They are about to learn how wrong they are. The 3,000 ships of the human exodus turned away from Council space and toward the darkness of the Outer Rim, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of an entire species determined to forge a new destiny among the stars. The Outer Rim proved to be humanity's crucible, a forge of fire and steel that would transform the exiled species into something far more dangerous than the Council had ever imagined. The first signs of trouble came when Captain Sujin's scout ship Daegu ventured into the Kepler system, searching for habitable worlds where the refugee fleet could establish new colonies. The attack came without warning. Sujin was reviewing star charts when her tactical officer screamed a warning that chilled her blood. Multiple contacts, bearing down fast. They're not showing up on our sensors properly. The bridge lights flickered as something massive slammed into the Daegu's hull. Through the reinforced viewports, Sujin caught her first glimpse of the swarm. The creatures were like nothing in the Council's databases, living ships that pulsed with organic energy. Their hulls covered in chitinous armor that seemed to regenerate even as human weapons tore into it. All hands, battle stations, Sujin shouted, gripping her command chair as the ship shuddered under another impact. The swarm vessels moved like insects, darting and weaving through space with impossible agility. Their weapons weren't energy, beams or missiles, but living projectiles that burrowed through the Daegu's hull like parasites. The fight lasted 3 brutal hours. Sujin's crew fought with desperate courage, but the swarm adapted to every tactic, every weapon, every defensive maneuver. When the Daegu finally broke free, half its hull was gone, exposing twisted corridors to the vacuum of space. 23 crew members were dead, and the ship was barely holding together. They're not just aggressive, Sujin reported to Fleet Command, her voice hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. They're intelligent. They learn from each engagement. Every time we hit them with something, they found a way to counter it within minutes. The refugees had fled Council space, only to find themselves facing an enemy that made their former persecutors look like children. The swarm had been terrorizing the Outer Rim for decades, consuming entire civilizations and adding their technology to their own biomechanical arsenal. Dr. Wujin worked desperately in the makeshift laboratories aboard the colony ships, studying fragments of swarm technology recovered from the Daegu's hull. The insects used biomechanical integration that surpassed anything humanity had achieved. Their ships were literally alive, grown rather than built, with neural networks that could process information faster than any computer. Look at this. Wujin called to his assistant, pointing at a sample under the electron microscope. The metal isn't just fused with organic tissue, it's been converted into a new form of matter entirely. Half metal, half living cells, but functioning as a single organism. The implications were staggering. The swarm didn't just build ships, they evolved them. Each vessel was a living creature capable of learning, adapting, and reproducing. No wonder they had dominated the Outer Rim for so long. But humanity's greatest breakthrough came not from studying their enemies, but from exploring their new home. Explorer the Jinn was leading a geological survey team on Kepler-4 for to be. When her ground-penetrating radar detected something impossible, the readings showed massive structures buried kilometers beneath the planet's surface. Structures that predated any known civilization. Chief, you need to see this, the Jinn called over the comm, her voice tight with excitement. Team had broken through into a chamber that defied comprehension. The ancient structure stretched 4 kilometers underground, their walls covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change even as she watched them. "It's some kind of quantum inscription," she reported to Chief Scientist Biora, back on the fleet. "The symbols exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They're not just writing, they're some kind of dimensional storage system." Biora's team worked around the clock to decode the ancient language. The breakthrough came when they realized the symbols weren't static, they were instructions. Blueprints for technology that made even the swarm's biomechanical integration look primitive. "These are the progenitors," Biora whispered as the first translations came through. "The species that seeded the galaxy with life millions of years ago, and they left us a gift." As Beer's team unlocked the progenitor secrets, humanity's capabilities expanded exponentially. The ancient technology revealed faster-than-light communication networks that could connect planets across the galaxy instantly, matter converters that could transform raw materials into any desired configuration, energy manipulation techniques that made fusion power look like rubbing sticks together. But the greatest discovery was the enhancement technology. The progenitors had found a way to merge organic and mechanical systems at the quantum level, creating beings that transcended the limitations of both flesh and steel. Meanwhile, General Dongmin was adapting human military doctrine to fight the Outer Rim's threats. The swarm wasn't the only danger lurking in the darkness. The energy-based Void Runners attacked anything that moved through their territory, while the mechanical collective sought to convert all organic life into cybernetic drones. "Forget everything you learned about warfare," Dongmin told his officers. "During a tactical briefing, the Council species fight with rules, with honor, with predictable patterns. Out here, the only rule is survival." His troops learned to combat enemies that existed as pure energy, creatures that could phase through solid matter, and machines that rebuilt themselves from wreckage. Traditional weapons were useless against beings that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The solution came from combining human ingenuity with progenitor technology. Dongmin's engineers developed quantum disruptors that could destabilize energy-based life forms, phase shifters that allowed human soldiers to match the Void Runner's dimensional abilities, and neural scramblers that could shut down the collective's hive mind. "We're not the same species that left Council space," Dongmin told his officers. "After their first victory against a collective invasion force, we're becoming something new, something stronger." The transformation was happening at every level of human society. Children born in the Outer Rim developed enhanced reflexes and spatial awareness. Scientists merged with progenitor quantum computers, became living libraries of knowledge. Soldiers equipped with biomechanical enhancements could survive in environments that would kill ordinary humans. The refugees who had fled Council space as broken exiles were forging themselves into something the galaxy had never seen: a hybrid species that combined human determination with alien technology and ancient wisdom in the depths of space. Far from the Council's watching eyes, humanity was learning that exile wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of their evolution into something far more dangerous than their former oppressors had ever imagined. The Outer Rim had tried to break them. Instead, it had made them stronger. 20 years had transformed the scattered refugees into a formidable civilization that the galaxy had never seen before. President Eugene stood in the command center of New Terra's Capitol building, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. The world that had once been a barren rock in the Outer Rim now bloomed with cities that reached toward the clouds, their spires gleaming with quantum-enhanced materials that made them stronger than diamonds. Eugene had been just a colony administrator. When the exile began, managing supply chains and housing assignments for desperate refugees, now she governed the Human Colonial Federation, a growing empire that stretched across hundreds of star systems. The transformation still amazed her. What had started as a desperate flight from persecution had become the foundation of something magnificent. "Status report on the expansion," she requested during the morning briefing, settling into her chair as her advisors assembled around the holographic conference table. The room hummed with barely contained energy as quantum processors handled communications from across the galaxy. Admiral Kyung-ho activated the holographic display that filled the center of the room. Stars appeared in brilliant three-dimensional detail, each one marked with symbols that told the story of humanity's silent conquest of the Outer Rim. 312 worlds now fly our flag, he announced, his voice carrying the pride of a man who had helped build an empire from nothing. The display zoomed in on the newest additions to the Federation. The Deepling Home Systems joined us last month, after we helped them fight off a swarm invasion. The Stoneshaper mining worlds formally requested membership after seeing our terraforming technology in action. Eugen nodded, studying the strategic implications. Each new world brought resources, population, and unique technologies that made the Federation stronger. But more importantly, each new alliance proved that humanity's vision of cooperation could work where the Council's authoritarian rule had failed. The alliance with non-human species had been Diplomat Yunji's greatest achievement. The woman had spent years traveling to distant worlds, meeting with species that the Council had ignored or oppressed. Her approach was simple, but revolutionary. Instead of demanding submission, she offered partnership. The Deeplings have shared their biotechnology advances, Yunji reported from her position at the table. Their organic computers can process information at quantum speeds while self-repairing any damage. Combined with our progenitor technology, we're looking at computational systems that could run entire star systems. The aquatic Deeplings had initially been suspicious of the surface-dwelling humans. But their tune changed when human engineers helped them defend their ocean worlds from mechanical invaders. The silicon-based Stoneshapers had been even more impressed when human terraforming technology turned their dead mining worlds into garden paradises. The Luminari have agreed to join the Federation, reported Ambassador Jinwu, his excitement barely contained. Their energy manipulation abilities will revolutionize our power systems. They can literally channel the power of stars into portable energy sources. Eugen smiled at the news. The Luminari were beings of pure energy who had been hiding in the galactic core for millennia, afraid that other species would try to enslave them as living batteries. But humanity had offered them something the Council never had: respect and partnership, instead of exploitation. Unknown to the Council, Intelligence Officer Heirin had spent years infiltrating alien worlds, building a network of human operatives who moved through Council space like ghosts. Her agents posed as traitors, diplomats, and refugees. Gathering intelligence on the political situation throughout the galaxy, the Zephyrians are facing rebellion on 7 mining worlds, she briefed the Security Council during a classified session. Their authoritarian policies are creating the same conditions that led to our exile: worker strikes, sabotage, and open revolt are spreading across their territory. The intelligence reports painted a picture of a council in decline. The same rigid thinking that had led to humanity's exile was now creating unrest throughout their territory. Species that had once been content to follow the council's rules were beginning to question why they had to accept stagnation when there were alternatives. The Mantillians have lost 3 colony worlds to independence movements, Heirin continued. The rebels are using human-designed weapons and tactics. They're not just fighting for freedom, they're fighting to join us. Fleet Admiral Sung Min reviewed the latest intelligence reports in his private office aboard the flagship New Korea. The massive dreadnought was a marvel of hybrid technology, combining human engineering with progenitor quantum drives and alien defensive systems. Its hull was grown rather than built, using swarm biomechanical techniques that had been reverse-engineered and improved. The Council's military had stagnated while humanity advanced at an incredible pace. Their ships still relied on technology that was centuries old: plasma weapons and chemical rockets that looked primitive compared to what the Federation had developed. Human vessels incorporated progenitor quantum drives that could fold space-time itself, adaptive AI systems that learned from every battle, and defensive shields that could absorb and redirect enemy attacks. They made us stronger by forcing us to survive alone, Sungmin observed to his staff officers. While they've grown comfortable and weak in their protected space, we've been fighting for our lives against enemies they can't even imagine. Transformation was visible in every aspect of human society. Children born in the Outer Rim grew up learning to pilot spacecraft before they could walk properly. Scientists routinely worked with technologies that would have been considered impossible just decades earlier. Soldiers trained to fight enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the most important change was philosophical. The Council had taught humanity that expansion was dangerous, growth led to conflict, that different species couldn't truly work together. 20 years in the Outer Rim had proven them wrong on every count. The human. Colonial Federation wasn't just larger than the Council, it was more diverse, more innovative, and more united. Species that had been enemies for centuries found common ground under human leadership. Technologies that had been jealously guarded were shared freely, creating innovations that benefited everyone. Eugène walked to the window of her office, looking out at the bustling streets of New Terra's capital. Humans worked alongside deeplings, stone shapers, and dozens of other species in perfect harmony. Children of different species played together in parks filled with plants from 100 worlds. Artists created works that combined the aesthetic, traditions of multiple civilizations. The Council wanted to contain us, she murmured to herself. Instead, they unleashed us. They thought exile would break us, but it freed us to become something they never imagined. The morning briefing had ended, but the work continued. Across the Federation, ships were being built, worlds were being terraformed, and alliances were being forged. The silent expansion continued, each day bringing new species into the fold. New technologies to be shared and new possibilities to be explored. The Council still didn't know what humanity had become. But they were about to find out. The Council's first hint of humanity's transformation came when their expansion. Fleet encountered Captain Hyenwoo's patrol ships in what they believed was empty space. The Vorthok commander had been leading a routine scouting mission to claim uninhabited star systems when his sensors detected something impossible. Ships that moved faster than anything in the Council's databases. The sleek human vessels appeared. Out of nowhere, their hulls shimmering with quantum field generators that bent light around them like liquid mercury. They moved with impossible speed and grace, dancing through space in formations that defied conventional physics. The Vorthok ships, massive and imposing by Council standards, looked clumsy and primitive by comparison. Unknown vessels you are. Trespassing in Council space, transmitted the Vorthok fleet commander. His serpentine form coiled with tension as he watched the mysterious ships on his view screen. Identify yourselves immediately or face the consequences. Captain Hyenwoo sat calmly in the command chair of his flagship, the Incheon. 20 years of fighting in the Outer Rim had transformed him from a young colonial patrol officer into a seasoned warrior. His ship was a marvel of hybrid technology, incorporating progenitor quantum drives, swarm biomechanical systems, and human engineering innovations that made it faster and more maneuverable than anything the Council had ever built. Actually, Hyenwoo replied calmly, his voice carrying across the void with crystal clarity. You're in Federation territory. I suggest you withdraw immediately before this becomes an incident neither of us wants. The Vorthok commander's scales rippled with shock. Federation territory? Council had no records of any Federation in this sector. These were supposed to be empty systems, worthless rocks floating in the darkness of the Outer Rim. There is no Federation here, the commander hissed. These systems are unclaimed, open for Council expansion under the Galactic Accords. Hyenwoo's expression never changed, but his tactical officers were already targeting the Council ships with weapons that could tear through their hulls like paper. The Galactic Accords were written by the Council for the Council. We operate under different laws now. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. The confrontation sent shockwaves through the galaxy when news reached the Council chambers. Species that had dismissed humanity as extinct refugees suddenly realized they had been building an empire in the shadows. Emergency sessions were called, fleets were mobilized, and ancient fears of human expansion came flooding back. Admiral Tae-woo, now an aged veteran with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war, led the diplomatic mission back to Nexus Prime. His fleet of 100 ships incorporated technology the Council had never seen before. The vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum drives leaving trails of distorted spacetime in their wake, the sight of the human Fleet approaching Nexus Prime was both magnificent and terrifying. Ships themselves seemed alive, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with organic energy, while quantum field generators created aurora-like displays around their forms. Council defense fleets scrambled to intercept, but the human ships passed through their formations like ghosts, their phase shift technology allowing them to exist in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned 20 years earlier, Ambassador Minho delivered the Federation's ultimatum. His hair was now completely white, and his face bore the lines of a man who had carried the weight of his species' survival for 2 decades. Behind him stood General Dongmin, his body enhanced with biomechanical augmentations that made him faster and stronger than any baseline human. President Yujin radiated quiet authority, her presence filling the chamber with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing. Admiral Sungmin's military bearing was unmistakable, his uniform decorated with medals from battles the Council couldn't even imagine. The Human Colonial Federation offers the Council one opportunity, Minho announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Acknowledge us as equals. Grant us full representation in galactic affairs, or face the consequences of your past decisions. The ethereal representative's crystalline form pulsed with anger, light refracting through its translucent body in patterns that spoke of rage and disbelief. You were exiled. You have no right to make demands. You should be grateful we allow you to exist at all. President Yujin stepped forward, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to move with fluid grace. 20 years of leadership had transformed the former colony administrator into someone who commanded respect simply by existing. We were exiled, she said, her voice carrying across the chamber with perfect clarity. But we were not destroyed, we learned. We grew. We became something greater than you could imagine. The council chamber erupted in chaos as species demanded. Explanations threatened war and argued among themselves. But their words were empty noise compared to the reality of human power, now arrayed against them. When the council refused the ultimatum, the true scope of humanity's achievement became clear. 17 council species defected to join the Federation, overnight bringing with them detailed intelligence on council military capabilities, industrial capacity, and strategic weaknesses. The Mantillians, tired of council oppression, opened their borders to human fleets. The Zephyrians, facing rebellions on their mining worlds, chose to align with the Federation rather than fight a war they couldn't win. The war that followed lasted only 6 months, but it changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Sungmin's fleets outmaneuvered Council forces using quantum tunneling drives that allowed them to appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. Human AI tactical systems predicted enemy movements with supernatural accuracy, while adaptive weapons systems learned from every engagement and evolved countermeasures in real time. The decisive battle came at Nexus Prime itself, where human ships surrounded the massive station without firing a single shot. The Council's defense fleet found their weapons systems disabled by quantum scramblers, their engines shut down by electromagnetic pulse weapons, and their communication networks jammed by technologies they had never seen before. Surrender. Sungmin transmitted to the Council leadership, his voice calm and professional despite the magnitude of the moment. Your fleets are disabled, your leadership trapped, your member species abandoning you. End this before more lives are lost unnecessarily. The old council dissolved that day, its authority crumbling as species after species declared their independence and requested membership in the Human Colonial Federation. The rigid hierarchy that had governed the galaxy for millennia was replaced by something unprecedented, a truly representative government based on cooperation rather than domination. In its place rose the Galactic Federation, built on principles of equality and mutual cooperation. Former Ambassador Minho, now elderly but triumphant, delivered the founding address from the same chamber where humanity had once been condemned to exile. We were exiled as outcasts, he said, his voice carrying across the galaxy through quantum communication networks that connected every world in the Federation. We return as builders of a better future. Let this be a lesson to all who would judge others by their fears rather than their potential. The species that had once voted for humanity's exile now lined up to join the Federation, eager to share in the prosperity and freedom that human leadership had brought to the galaxy. The age of the Council was over. The age of true galactic cooperation had begun. The exiles had become the architects of a new galactic order, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes from surviving the worst adversity. The end.